So I know that we're running just a few minutes late. Unfortunately, with some of these technological things, it's a bit difficult to sort of manage, and we have a bit of a hybrid situation going on. So yeah, but I'm glad that we are finally starting, and I don't want to waste any more time. So I'm just going to go straight into it. My name is Sibongiseni Gwebani, and I am from Masifundise. I know it's a bit strange because some of you are looking at me and some of them are looking at the screen. Oh, louder.
Maybe we should make a technical point. The speakers from the room are the microphone is only there to be the also. And we are talking about the system to encourage information also. Thanks to massive community, and I can see who will find the resources. So
I'll try and speak as loud as possible. Is that okay for everyone? Awesome. So as I said before, my name is Sibongiseni Gwebani, and I am from Masifundise. If some of you were in today's earlier program this morning, you would have heard that Masifundise is a community-based organization that has for the past 20 years worked with small-scale fishing communities. We were instrumental in the development of the small-scale fishery policy and some of the amendments to the marine living resources. But I'm here today to really speak about the right to food. The right to food within the South African context is enshrined in our constitution under section 27 and 28. It's embedded in the very core values and principles of our democracy, as well as some of the legislative frameworks, such as the small-scale fishing policy that I already spoke of, and numerous other international human rights tools, so your SSF guidelines as well. But what we're seeing, or what is increasingly becoming a trend, is the increasing violation or the challenge or abuse of the right to food and nutrition through ocean grabbing, oil and gas exploration, and other sort of blue economy activities that we sort of are becoming an aggressive sort of movement, not only in South Africa, but all over the world. So in essence, in underlining the role of small-scale fisheries, in contributing to the right to food and nutrition, and as well as the contributions that they're making to food worldwide in terms of their rural population and for the... I do not exist. Okay. So under the need to recognize and highlight the role that they play in the right to food and nutrition, this session really aims to see how we can create a discussion around the violations and how we can strategize towards getting solutions towards sort of protecting the right to food that is enshrined in a lot of the sort of constitutions and some of the policies that we already have. So before I begin really getting into the heart of this discussion, I just want to give a brief background on the global network for the right to food and nutrition. This network is made out of 60 organizations and social movements across the globe, in which Masifundise is part of. And it really, as I mentioned before, it creates a dialogue and mobilization in order to hold governments and the state accountable for the human rights violations towards the right to food and nutrition. The network doesn't only look at just the right to food and nutrition, but it also looks at the defenders who are often criminalized and violated as well as a result of fighting for this right. So it's sort of a two-pronged approach in that sense. It also recognizes the role that women play in food and nutrition. Often women are the shock absorbers in their communities and their families. So it really does hone in also on the role of women and making sure that their rights within the right to food and nutrition are also promoted. Also using the lens of food sovereignty in order to take the struggle forward. So the right to food and nutrition watch, which is the piece of the booklet that's in front of you. It's a publication that comes from the global network for the right to food and nutrition. So this specific edition really is dedicated at looking at small-scale fishes across the world and their right to food, as well as the related abuses and violations, despite the huge contribution and the role that they make to food in the world. So this panel today was organized by the global network for the right to food and nutrition, and in collaboration with Masifundise and FIAN International. And what we'd like to do is just basically have a dialogue with small-scale fishers who have been affected by some of these violations and which have contributed to the threat to their food and the threat to the nutrition of their communities. As we've seen today, a lot of the panel discussions we've really seen have predominantly been voices of academics and voices from maybe government officials. This space we want to be a space that is dominated by the key custodians of the ocean, the people who are responsible for our food and nutrition. So it was a very, very sort of important moment. This is an important moment for us to ensure that the voices of small-scale fishing communities come through quite strongly, and we're able to get their experiences and some of the violations that we know of. So without really wasting any more time, I would like to just start with some of the introductions of the panelists, which are both here physically and also the ones that are online. So the first panelist, it's not really in the order in which I will say it in, but the first person we have is Hedia Lajeunesse, and she is from the Tunisian Association for the Development of Artisanal Fisheries, and is also a member of the World Forum of Fisher Harvesters and Fish Workers, WFF. And then we have Anita Legoa, from the Okavango Delta in Botswana. She's a gender representative for the Southern Africa for the Indigenous Peoples of Africa Coordinating Committee. And then we have Walter Steenkamp, who is a Coastalink member and a small-scale fisher in the Northern Cape in South Africa. We are meant to also have one additional other panelist, but they're having some difficulties sort of connecting. When he does connect, then I will create that opportunity where I can sort of make that introduction. And then we have Stefania Tripodi, who is the Human Rights Officer. She's waving, at the United Nations, and she's based in Switzerland. So her focal point is on the social protection and security. We also have Ibrahim Tian from the Rosa Luxembourg. in Dakar, who works on the natural resources, vulnerabilities and alternatives, and climate change. He's also sort of been instrumental, lots of work. He's done a lot of work with small-scale fishing communities as well. So he has a wealth of knowledge around some of their struggles, and will be also be able to speak to some of those. So I just want to, I have a few questions for our panelists to just sort of kickstart the conversation. And these, I know that they're also around the room. There are lots of small-scale fishers from all over the world. So if they also want to engage and create more dialogue around some of these questions, or just add or contribute to the conversation as well, that is also okay. But the first thing I think we want to get to the heart of what are the current challenges that are faced by small-scale fishers, and in between those, are we seeing any patterns? Are we seeing any trends that we're seeing between the different countries and the different communities? So maybe I can start off with Hedia, who could speak to that for a little bit.
Bon après-midi. Je suis Hedia de l'association tunisienne de développement de la pêche artisanale qui fait part de WFF, faisant à son tour part de Comité international de planification pour la souveraineté alimentaire qui m'a invité.
My name is
Hedia.
You need to turn off your volume. Sorry, we had like 4 minutes with Ken in the room.
Okay, I think there might be an echo because this is a microphone that picks up the entire room, so.
Hello, my name is Kika. I come from Tunisia. I'm a member of a small-scale fisheries organization, which is a member of WFF, which in turn is a member of the IPC, the International Planning Committee for Food Sovereignty.
La Comité international de planification pour la souveraineté alimentaire qui m'a invité pour assister avec vous aujourd'hui.
It is IPC who has invited me to participate in this event.
La pêche artisanale en Tunisie est considérée comme un sous-secteur d'importance socio-économique.
Artisanal fishery, small-scale fishery in Tunisia is considered as a very relevant sector in terms of social development sector.
Qui regroupe plus que 60% des marins pêcheurs.
It removes more than 50% of the maritime fishing flow.
70% du flotille national
70% of the national flotilla.
Et contribue au plus de un tiers de la production totale des produits de la pêche.
And contributes to more than a third of the total production of fisheries products in the country.
Ce sous-secteur est confronté à plusieurs défis
This sector is facing a number of challenges
qui ont contribué à cette détérioration et instabilité,
which are contributed to deterioration and instability,
notamment la surexploitation et la pêche INN,
notably overexploitation and INF fishery,
et surtout la pollution, qui est devenue une menace directe pour le droit au travail et de la santé des pêcheurs.
and the pollution which has become a major threat both for the right health and for the health of fishing.
Dans ce sens, je vais parler aujourd'hui de la catastrophe, ou plutôt la massacre environnemental de la région de Gabès.
I will speak of the catastrophe, or rather the environmental disaster that occurred in the region of Gabès.
Au sud-est de la Tunisie, cette zone souffre de la pollution chimique
In the southeast of Tunisia, this area suffers from chemical pollution,
provoquée par le complexe chimique de traitement de phosphate.
which is provoked by the complex that is phosphate.
Ce complexe jette depuis une décennie et chaque jour plus que 15 000 tonnes de phosphogypse en mer.
is the complex is pouring more than 50,000 tons of phosphate into the sea every year, and
Chaque jour,
every day.
15 000 tonnes de phosphogypse en mer, ce qui a provoqué la formation d'une couche épaisse de phosphogypse
Which has provoked the creation of a very thick layer of phosphogypse in the sea,
qui s'étend pour 60 km² en mer.
spread over 60 kilometers per kilometer in the sea.
Cette couche a affecté la transparence de l'eau et son mouvement, tuant les espèces marines, animales et végétales,
As well as the sea movement, hence killing both maritime animal and vegetable species in the area.
et la migration d'autres espèces de poissons qui s'y rendaient se produire avant que la mer se désertifie et que la biodiversité ne diminue dramatiquement.
It has also created the loss, the disappearance of a number of fish species who were before living in that area, and due to the drastic destruction of biodiversity.
Ne laissant que quelques espèces capables de s'adapter à la pollution.
Only a few species were being able to adapt to pollution were able to remain in the area.
Plus que 4 000 pêcheurs artisanaux ont perdu leurs moyens de subsistance au risque de le perdre.
Over 4,000 small-scale fishers have lost their means of subsistence or are in the process of losing it.
Et des centaines de femmes collectrices de palourdes sont aujourd'hui en chômage.
And over 100 women who were collecting seashells are now unemployed.
Suite à la mort collective de cette espèce et par la suite l'effondrement l'effondrement du stock.
Following the collective death of the species and followed by the total loss of stock of class stock.
À part les maladies cancéreuses, cutanées et respiratoires enregistrées.
Not to mention the increase in number of cancer, skin and respiratory diseases that have been reported in the area.
L'organisation civile n'a pas cessé de lutter et de criminaliser ce fait jusqu'à ce jour.
The civil organization has always tried to attempt to criminalize these issues. To this day, they haven't stopped fighting.
Ce groupe chimique, à travers l'État, a fait reconnaissance de sa destruction de l'écosystème marin.
This chemical group has recognized via the states the destruction of the maritime system.
Et a signé un accord en 2016 pour indemniser les pêcheurs.
And in 2016, signed an agreement in order to compensate fisher folk.
Mais cet accord n'a pas été mis à jour jusqu'à aujourd'hui. Merci.
But this agreement has been updated for implementing this day.
So Hedia is speaking to some of the challenges that she or fisher folk in her community and her country have been going through. And she mentioned pollution, the loss of marine life and biodiversity, and the effect that this has had on small-scale fishing, small-scale fisher livelihoods, and ultimately contributing to the loss of the right to food and nutrition in her own country. Outside of that, it also actually speaks to not just the right to food, but also she spoke of the right to health. In essence, the effect of the pollution or has also affected the community in such a way that there are cancers, there are respiratory diseases, and just general degeneration of the quality of life of those both as small-scale fishers and the country at large. So I think she's touching on very, very important issues, and which is why we're having this conversation as to how we can possibly remedy these situations and maybe create strategies. She spoke of compensation as well. that some of the small scale fishing communities were also compensated. And I know that in South Africa, something like that has not happened. So it's quite interesting to hear that sort of perspective. Also, I just want to maybe throw this to also Walter. I know that there are lots of oil and gas exploration in the Northern Cape, and maybe how has that contributed maybe to the loss of fisher livelihoods and your right to food?
Yeah, good day all. Thank you for the opportunity for inviting me. I am a fisherman all my life. So yeah, I am also represent the Northern Cape fishing community on the national chair structure. Yeah, there's a lot of threats that the fishermen of the fisher community are facing. The first one is the oil and gas. They are not yet busy to pump some oil in our area, but the exploration work they was doing in the first place was a danger in our water, because we as fishers must see the effect of that, because the fish was not so good as the previous time. And that is a big impact on our fish, but we can see. And that make that there is a larger income for the fishermen at the end of the day. So yeah, and also they bring dividing in the communities into itself, because the consultation work they bringing to the communities is just a nice story and a nice picture they come and painting for the communities. But at the end of the day, if you look at the negative impact what they are really cause in the sea and for the fishing communities livelihood, that is a big threat. So yeah, I want to say yes, they must do the consultation work in a proper manner so that there can be a proper answer at the end of the day for the communities, and not just take consultation work for answer from the fishing communities. So yeah, we're sitting with a lot of stress and we don't know how we can stop this oil and gas companies. And it's not oil and gas companies, it's also the Nel who are throwing bombs in our waters. So yeah, that affect also as well our fish. So yeah, we will try to get try that our company, our ministers or government come with a solution. If they didn't have a solution, yeah, we as fishers sit with a solution. So yeah, we are crying all the years to our department that they must come and form a co-management with all the fishers, so that we can be involved with all the decisions they make at the end of the day. Then we will not sit with that, all of that mess that we sit today in. It is because they left us all out in the beginning of all the processes they was doing in the first place. So yeah, but for me it's important that they must come and respect our fishermen and recognize our fishermen and know that we as fishermen is not against development. But yeah, development must happen. But development is a thing that come and chase the communities away from where they are staying. So people must make placing for development. And that is also a big concern, because they are moving us away from the sea and we're making our lives from the sea. So yeah, there's a lot of threats for our fishermen. And I believe that all the stories they was talking today, it is not just a talk show, that they come and implement all what they was talking about today. Yeah, and the second thing is that we sit here with poor infrastructure and poor vessels. So yeah, we cannot feed the whole community with a small dinky, or just 2 men work on that dinky. So yeah, if the government will come and assist us with bigger boats and let us give us the opportunity to work also with offshore care, just that little portion of offshore they're giving to us. Because yeah, they're saying we are the ones who are responsible for poacher in making the ocean empty. But that is not true. we can see that the big industry, they are the one who are responsible for all this. And that must really change because all the years they was in the one who sitting in front. And we as the fishers who are the owners actually of the sea was left out. So yeah, really there must be a transformation really fast.
Thanks, thanks, Walter. So he touched on a couple of things. So the issue of oil and gas has increasingly been a trend in South Africa or South African waters lately, and globally in general. He spoke of the loss of income and how that oil and gas exploration is also creating tensions within the community. There are also these big companies are also coming with there's a lack of consultation, and there's a promise of job creation, which is what is creating the tensions between sustainable development and between development and fishers being able to secure a livelihood by themselves. So there are, and he's also he's touching on a sort of the last sort of question I'll be asking, but also speaking to what potential solutions could be, or potential strategies around co-management and including communities within the management of natural resources. And how development needs to come in a way that is sustainable. There are issues around disposition of moving small-scale fishing communities away from the shore, creating further divisions or creating a further divide from the food in which they provide. So, and also just lastly, he also spoke of the criminalization of small-scale fishing communities versus the industrial and big sort of companies who are able to sort of make their way into their waters, yet there are no repercussions for the for the sort of damage that they create in the waters and the traditional fishing grounds of small-scale fishing. So I'm going to hand over to thanks, Walter.
Just ask my last question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I got two last questions. The one is we didn't getting access through the mines also. And the last one, I want all of us, we must ask us this question about this oil and gas and everything they bring here. Who got what? Who do what? Who want what? And who get what? That is the four questions we must ask ourselves. Thank you.
I think those were key. I think those. I think those are very powerful questions around who gets to benefit. When we see these companies going into communities, who loses out the most, who gets to benefit? So I think those are incredibly important questions that we need to be asking ourselves and also demanding from our governments to be accountable. Because ultimately these rights are permitted, or these grants are into the traditional fishing grounds are granted by the government. They are the ultimate duty bearers. They are the people who allow these big industrial companies and these oil and gas exploration to happen in the waters of traditional fisherfolk. So I think it's a very, very powerful point that Walter made. I just want to get a perspective, maybe from, because Anita, it's also sort of from a gendered perspective of women in Botswana and how this has affected them and their small and sort of their ability to put food on the table, to secure a livelihood, and ultimately to protect their right to food.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Diphetoro Anita Lokwa from Botswana. I would like to thank International Planning Committee for this opportunity to come here and share the story about the beautiful Okavango Delta. I'll start by saying Botswana has made a strategy of how to, to violate our rights. First, by saying in the constitution that all Botswana are indigenous. So this means that it limits us where we can challenge the law when it comes to our rights. We are the San people of the Okavango Delta, which holds most of the livelihoods activities that are happening in the Delta. Like people are living through river food, like fish, water lilies, and other foods that we get in the river. By so, we happen to have a change of the way we were, or a change of our lifestyle has shifted in a way that our women are so vulnerable. They don't depend on themselves anymore. When I grow up, I used to see my parents, like the ladies, going to the river. They were aware of how the ladies were getting fish and how the men were getting fish. There were this kind of baskets that you will make like this and make a hole. So you go and put it like this, you get a fish. And the other way of making a mud. That's how the women used to get some fish from the river, using that method. But these days, we see that ladies are not doing that. They'll rather go and work at this drought relief employment, where they clean the bushes. That's what the women are doing these days in our community. So this has brought so many challenges in our communities. Recognition of fishermen. We see that the government has banned fishing in Botswana. So indigenous people are banned, like to do their daily activities. Engagement during policy implementation. The decision is being taken without our involvement. So these things, they bring breach between the two parties, because the government will come with something that doesn't get along with our culture. Participation of women in fishery. I think that one I've already said it, and market selling of fish, because there are men who are doing fish in our country. We see that they don't even have or knowledge of how to invest, or the entrepreneurship skills of how to make money out of this fish. The only way they know is just to catch fish, stand by the roadside, sell it, and then go home with the rest of the fish. So these are the challenges that we are having. And the major challenges also that we are having is access to natural resources. Botswana is a beautiful country that is rich in natural resources, but indigenous people, as they are people who depend on natural resources, their livelihoods depend on getting indigenous plants, getting indigenous food. And the policy comes and stop this. It means you are killing the identity of the person. You are even, the self-esteem that we used to have, because some of these foods, they were connecting us to our ancestors. Like we will get that food when that plant when someone is sick for healing. We'll get that food when it's celebration of rain or something. But these activities are not happening anymore because of the the law. We have indigenous protected areas back in Botswana, like the one I'm talking about, the Okavango Delta, is the World Heritage Site. And we also have Zodilo Hill, which is also the World Heritage Site. So our ancestral lands are not protected. The government grab it from us. Why am I saying this? They privatize these territories, and then they relocate the indigenous people from these territories so that they can bring on their big pockets partners to come and do businesses in these areas. For example, we have a mining company that has been introduced to drill oil in the Okavango Delta. Before I continue with that, I'll just like to quote from the page of Recon Africa, Botswana, that is about to drill oil in the Okavango Delta. They said also Recon Africa holds 100% interest, 100% in a petrol license, Northwest Botswana, which comprises an area of approximately 8,990 square kilometers, which is 2.2 million acres, and also continues to the Namibia license. So they further explained that Recon is entitled to 25 years production license. 25 years. And you have given someone 100% shares. What are you saying about the people of that area? Have you consulted those people? What have you looked at the long terms? Have you gone to those countries that they have oil mines and see how the oil has damaged the country? Have you done that? No. And yet you come to the people's territory and give it and just sell it away like that. So these are the people, the painful things that we are facing right now. What we have tried to do as indigenous representative, we raised awareness in our community. We held workshop because this oil mining is starting in Namibia, and Namibia, Botswana, they share the Okavango Delta. So they have
Maybe before you get to the strategies that you've implemented, it's also a question. Maybe let's pause for from here. I also want, so I just want us to pause. We're going to get back to that question around strategies and what we can do, maybe to also bring in governments and that sort of thing. So I just want to highlight one big thing that I think came out of Anita's sort of input. How the right to food is intrinsically linked to the right to culture and the right to tradition. So when you threaten someone's right to food, you also in the same breath threaten the cultural practices. She spoke around the indigenous ways of fishing that have now sort of almost disappeared or invisibilized as a result of the threat to their food. So she also spoke around how small scale fishing in her country or in Botswana is embedded in culture. And so when you remove that element or when you infringe upon someone's right to food, you're also in the same breath infringing on their culture and their traditional practices. And I think that's powerful. Before, I know that one of the panelists online also needs to leave soon. So I do want to sort of get her input, maybe move on to the next question and get her input around maybe what we can see the international community, including bodies like the UN, and other regional bodies, and how they can contribute to the realization of Fisher people's right to food and nutrition, or what role they have played or can play in making sure that that right to food is protected for vulnerable communities or vulnerable small-scale fishing communities. Maybe I'll hand over to Stefania.
Thank you, Sibon Giseni, and thank you to the fisher women and fishermen for sharing their experiences and the challenges they have so well outlined for us. It's a pleasure to be with you, even if it's only online. I wish I was there in person, and I would really like to thank the Global Network, FIAN and Massifundisse for organizing this timely discussion on World Fishers Day. So just as, I mean, the challenges are various, and in these specific cases, the small-scale fishers showed us what is the impact of business activities on their daily lives, on their right to work, on their right to food, and as also pointed out, the link of having access to fishing grounds for their culture, and so also their cultural rights. And in this case, human rights law is very clear. The state has an obligation to respect small-scale fishers' rights, but has also an obligation to protect them from the activities of third actors. And as it was pointed out in Tunisia, also the type of activity was having an impact on the rights of small-scale fishers, including the right to health. In the case of water in South Africa, how also oil and gas are actually activities that are disrupting their livelihoods, and plus in our context of moving towards a green economy, a sustainable and green economy, human rights law would really question the lack of protection of the state from these activities of oil and gas. And the Office of the High Commissioner is painfully aware of these challenges, and you mentioned some of them. And we think that small-scale fishers and their community remain invisible, and climate change, discrimination, and marginalization all intersect to threaten their rights. And what are we doing in particular, and to address your question? For example, in the Pacific, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights has documented how small-scale fishers' rights, including their right to work, has been affected by rising sea levels, extreme weather, overfishing from vessels outside the region, and non-sustainable touristic and development projects. In the Sahel, in African Sahel, in the Saint Louis region of Senegal, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights has reported that fishers increasingly have no choice but to seasonally migrate to Mauritania, where fish stocks are less depleted and where there are more work opportunities. So in the face of these challenges, and if there is an opportunity to elaborate more on this, I'd be happy also to contribute to what we have observed. So in the face of these challenges, small-scale fishers require special protection and measures to safeguard their access to coastal waters and fishing grounds. And the international community, and in particular the UN bodies that basically monitor the implementation of human rights instruments, have been addressing the issues systematically. In fact, international human rights law provides a solid framework to devise legal and policy measures to address these challenges. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the main human rights instruments, they go from racial discrimination to the rights of the child, to the rights of persons with disability, they all apply to small-scale fishers and help in bringing like a magnifier lens to spot the root causes of discrimination and provide policy guidance to eradicate discrimination and promote substantive equality, including in the context of climate change. And each of these instruments has a monitoring body, as I was saying, that interpret the content of the rights, but also monitors the implementation of the instrument at the country level and provide the states with key recommendations to improve the situation. And this recommendation can really provide a contextualized roadmap for advancing the enjoyment of small-scale fisher rights. And in particular, for example, the concluding observations on the Philippines of the Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, they really provide a very holistic roadmap to improve and overcome these challenges. And then we also have the Declaration on the Rights of Peasants and Other People Working in Rural Areas that specifically includes small-scale fishers. And so the international community, and with the international community, I'm really referring to the human rights bodies and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. We've been advocating for targeted measures to support small-scale fishers with financial support, access to credit, land, seeds, natural resources, and technology to support their livelihood and decent working conditions and sustainable fishing. And then, of course, measures that dismantle the deeply rooted and intersecting forms of discrimination, including gender and racial discrimination, that hinder small-scale fishers' rights. And then finally, to empower small-scale fishers to ensure their participation in policy and decision-making processes that affect them. And of course, for them to have access to information, accountable processes, and remedies in case of violations. And remedies, for example, in the cases that the small-scale fishers have just shared with us. So I'll stop here, but I'm in no hurry. So I'm here, so you can count on me also for the entire event.
Thank you so much for that input. And in terms of also highlighting what instruments are possible or in the arsenal of small-scale fishing communities across the world, things that they can tangibly use to hold their governments accountable for some of these violations that we're continuing to see across the globe. I do want us to go to Ibrahima. Sorry. I want us to go to Ibrahima. He does also have a presentation that he wants to share with us, to just give him a moment to speak to some of the questions that we've already asked, both the first and around the challenges, and also the contribution or what the international community has done within his particular perspective. So I do want us to move to him.
Yes, I'm really grateful to be part of this meeting despite my delay. I'm really sorry for that. My name is Ibrahim Thiam. I'm from Senegal, Dakar. Senegal is a country in the western part of Africa. It is a country of 17 million people. I'm trying to bring in a short way the challenges that the small scale fishers in Senegal are facing, and trying to show a little bit what we as a foundation, a German foundation called Rosen Foundation, are doing to support these communities. Yes, the country, as I say, it is in the Atlantic Ocean, and we have what is an opportunity is that we have this what we call this descending current of the Canary Island, crossing the counter current also rising from equator, that makes this area really favorable for industrial fishing and coastal artisanal also fishing too. And that means this country fishing is a way of life, and there are some communities and areas where we find fisher communities who are living there. And you could see here that the major fishing centers are those whose annual landings are on average of greater than 1,000 or 2,500 tons. And you see on the coastline, we have 700-kilometer coastline, and you could see how I brought it with Saint-Louis, Kayar, Yoff, Soumbédioune, and so far. These are areas where we have fisher communities living, especially with this from these activities, and they polarize about 80% of artisanal fishing activities in the country. Yes, I think I should go back. Okay, this sector, we could say there is a subsectors, artisanal fishing and industrial one. The artisanal fishing is characterized, I take here the year 2019, we have counted a fleet of 12,851 active canoes. You could maybe think behind there, these are communities, there are families, there are relatives who are also working and living with these activities. When we take the industrial fishing, the national fleet is about 118 ships, and the foreign one, which is 19. And one of the key problem that we are facing is this foreign one. I think somebody raised it behind, because the agreement that our countries are giving to such boats that comes and they are really emptying our ocean, our fishing areas. So fishing is, as I say, artisanal fishing. The quantity is landed by 2019 increase. If we take the example from 2018 and 2019, we could have today 451,000, we could say 52,000 tons. So, and fishery costs contribute to 1.8% to the GDP in Senegal. It has increased somehow, but the recent years, we will come to that because of the problem that we are facing with climate change. There is the situation is being really on trouble, but it could provide at least 86,000 direct jobs. So to summarize it, fishery in Senegal is the main economic activity of the local population and one of the main pillars of the Senegalese economy. That is very important. And you could see this food security in Senegal should and is based on the fishery sector. What are the challenges now? Here, climate change. Senegal is, as I said, more than 700 coastline, and climate change is very impacting to this community. So that today, the first community, I would say, are the fisher one, who at the end are facing trouble to have at least to survive, even to assure their livelihood, which brought certain issues like migrating. In this area, there is a high rate of youth going to Europe, thinking that if there is no perspective in this area, why not trying to go because of the climate and also the economic issues. Second one is what is now a big issue is Senegal has discovered gas and oil, and we are so proud, we are so happy seeing that development is coming. But developing it's depending on the life of community fisher who used to live in these areas, because unfortunately it is offshore, and all these areas where they will be by 2023 exploitation. These are fisher. This is the highest rate of fisher activities. You could imagine what will be the future of these people. What will be the destiny of these people when we are trying to open it. Even in Senegal, it is the government is trying to say that we can assure that there will less damage and so, but everybody knows that oil and fish cannot live together. It's very, very, very difficult. We have seen it in other countries, and we will not be the only one that will really escape from this kind of issue. So, but if you see exploitation, oil and gas in Senegal will bring nearly 890 billion of the CFA for the country, for the state. It is an opportunity, economical opportunity. But as I say, we should not forget that the community living in these areas, they were noble people. They were respected because of their work. And maybe I bring the issue of the women, because somebody said that the men only need to bring the fish, and what is about the processing? It is women organizations who are doing it. All these activities are hitting really the situation of women in Senegal in all cases. We it is something that we have to think of. But the state tries to bring some mitigation and so, but we all know it's only profit that comes in the front, but for the sake of these people, I don't think that they are really caring about. Now the projection are that there will be loss of work because 700,000 people will certainly lose their income. You know, there will be risk of conflict between fishermen and public security forces, because today we are feeling a kind of anger from this community saying that the sea, as I say, it is a way of life. It is civilization. It is culture. It is more than just going to fish and come back, you know. And if it is threatened, you can imagine what will be the anger of these people. And there are risks, what we say, for maybe eventual terrorists, issue with the gas facilities. And yes, but in all cases, we will see that for us, there is a danger of how people will survive when we go on exploitation of gas and oil, because we know that the main issue that we have in our country is clarity, you know, and bribery is there, corruption, and so nobody think that will be a kind of El Dorado when we receive this gas and oil. So these are most of the things that we are facing. And this community, as I said, you can read in their face, you can hear their heart beating, because exploitation will be, the state thinks there is no other option of doing it. Maybe just transition is one question, but these are things that for the not the near future, but it is important to do something. What are we doing as a foundation? We are a German foundation working in certain fields. Climate change is my task, and I'm working closely with these communities from the northern Senegal to the south. We have done some film to show the reality of these people. One is what has been done for several years was golden fish, African fish. It is from Thomas Grand. It has really impacted, which has a lot of prices because of the issue and the content. The recent one we have done with myself was the tears of a fisherman, because today that is what we are feeling. And I hope that you will have the opportunity to share with you this film so that you can see it, see what is happening on what the hopelessness, you know, how people are now really doubted and trying to find other ways, like going on migration. You know, it's just like a suicide that we have. We are doing also a climate justice campaign. It's because of climate justice. When people are no more are damaged, are not encouraged, but they are despaired, you know, about their future. And climate is playing a role because of the coastal erosion. Today, we ask for climate justice. I think it is one issue that we are doing with them. We also work with a fishnet alliance in Nigeria. It is coordinated by an organization called HOMEF from Nimo Basse. And today, this fishnet alliance is widely West Africa. It's beginning from Nigeria, coming to Senegal, Togo, Ghana. These are the countries that we have reached, and their slogan is "Fish not oil," because they think we need our fish. Let us do our best with our fish, but this oil is only destroying our life. And so, and international campaign is also, recently we have been to the COP27. We have brought someone from a fisher community to express himself. We had the opportunity to for a press conference where he could express himself, saying, and you could feel really, as I say, you know, how the sadness coming from these people. To summarize it, fishermen were noble people. This is how we used to call them. Today, they are really doubting about the future. It's because situation has changed. Climate change is impacting. They are now not, they are marginalized also. And above all, women working in the fishing areas are very, very touched by this issue. And today it is a the question of livelihood is a question of survival, and I think there is a great need to unite, to work on that subject. And I'm really grateful to be part of this this meeting to hear other experiences, and I'm open for other questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sort of painting a picture from the Senegalese sort of perspective around some of the challenges that fishers in that particular area or particular part of the world are experiencing. So around both oil and gas, we're seeing a big trend around that, and climate change. Obviously, those are big threats that are really infringing on the right to food of small-scale fishing communities. But you also spoke of some great initiatives that you've been able to put together, been part of, in order as an advocacy strategy around some of these issues that we're seeing sort of propping up within small-scale fishing communities. This idea of the commodification of the ocean, but not for the benefit of small-scale fishing communities, and this idea that oil and fishing don't mix. And those or oil and fishing cannot coexist, which I think also within the South African context, we're currently seeing those sort of narratives from government using load shedding, using the sort of the electricity crisis that we find ourselves in South Africa, and using that particular narrative that we need to look into alternative energy sources. And what that means is that they want to look into the ocean, and that will heavily impact the traditional fishing grounds of small-scale fishers. And ultimately their livelihoods and their ability to put food on the table and to provide nutrition for the communities in which they are in. So these are big sort of issues. We're seeing a lot of these sort of trends around these sorts of threats to the right to food. So I just want, just as a last question, and I think this one I can open up to the floor as well, where, I mean, we have lots of fishers who are present here from all over the world, not just from South Africa, from all over the continent and all over the world. I think we need to start thinking around strategies and things that we can do to hold our governments accountable for some of the legislation around oil and gas and some of the legislation around extractive activities. So I suppose my question is what can be done in order to protect the livelihood activities of small-scale fishers, and by extension, their right to food and nutrition? What solutions can we come up with, and how can governments or the states as well sort of contribute to some of these solutions? So I'm going to start with our panelists who are already, I know, Anita, I cut you off a little bit when you were talking about some of the advocacy strategies that that in Botswana have started happening as a result of these threats that are sort of popping up and sort of impeding on the livelihoods and the right to food of fishers in Botswana. So maybe I can give you that opportunity to first give it a first stab, and then I'll open it up to the room as well.
Thank you. Since the sad news hit us about the oil mining that is coming to our big river, we were sort of engaging our partners that we are working with international, and helped us to raise funds so that we can do awareness raising in our communities. We started by involving leaders, community leaders from bottom to top, And we even went to the full council to have a meeting with them. And the good part again was that me and 10 ladies were taken to Nigeria to go and case study or to benchmark on how the oil has damaged their country, and now what the outcomes from the organizations that are fighting for the rights of the people in Nigeria. Mostly some of the issues that we were really facing was on women, that we know that women are going to be the most affected by this because of their health, abuse, you name it. These were the things that we were talking with the women about, and also losing of their identity. And what we did was to connect together with the women in Namibia, because the mining has started already that side. So it was unfortunate to them that these things, it just came to hit them and started immediately. But in Botswana, we heard about it and we were preparing for it. So that's why we were involved in Namibia women, so that we can, teach them about how to avoid this abuse, even though they have already started operating in their areas. And one of the story that I want to, if you allow me, in March, we were there with 3 IPEC people and 1 director from IPEC from Kenya. We got arrested in Namibia. We stayed in the police station from 12 up to 9 p.m. They were interrogating us what we are doing, and that we come here and poison the people against the government. So these are some of the issues that we are facing. And we also taught them about the long-term impact, because in the meeting between Recon Africa and the government, and leaders, community leaders, they only told them about the good part of mining that will bring. When we came and talked to them about the long-term impact, the leaders were so furious that they want both parties in, but unfortunately we were chased away by the government out of the meeting. So we couldn't explain this to the community while both parties were there. The solutions, I will skip some of the points. Another thing that we are doing is climate adaptation, how we can maybe help them to overcome these challenges that we are facing. Solutions that we came up with in our communities to be consulted in every part of decision making and policies, provide training and practices to the local so that they understand the value of fish market. Value chain of the fish market, entrepreneurship skills training. Also a way of maybe to have, because we know how to do that, to have like to grow the small fish, to get the small fish away from the river, and then we grow them to avoid people getting them while they are young to eat them. We grow them. When they are ready to breed, we bring them back to the river so that they can breed, and then we take the babies again to do that. That's it's something that we want to engage ourselves with. Market and identify lagoons that indigenous use to sustain their livelihoods and need to be protected. We had our lagoons that were named after our leaders in our territories, and we need them to be protected. And the government and these mining companies should provide financial support to the indigenous projects and organizations so that they can also sustain their livelihoods, because we can't stop the mining from happening. So we think that now they should commit themselves to financially support indigenous people's organizations. I think
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think you've touched on some very useful strategies that you've implemented in your particular country. I think at the very core of it, you spoke through the importance of alliance building and exchanges with other women. So this idea that we can't do it by ourselves, right? We need the support of other communities who are going through the same sort of threats or facing the same threats. So this idea of alliance building and organizing and mobilizing, it's imperative in order to ensure that we put pressure on governments and to ensure that the right to food is protected and promoted in sort of the countries that we come from. So I want to open it up either to Walter or Lydia or the rest or anyone. We have maybe a few minutes left for anyone else who also wants to make an input around some of the solutions or possible advocacy strategies that we can put forward to ensure that we are able to protect the right to food and nutrition in our communities. Walter, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. First, I want to say, one day I was going to my mayor in Port Nolet and I was asking him about the impact of the oil and gas. And I must told you guys, he know nothing. So if my mayor is nothing, how will the president know something about all of this? Because what we as fishers see is that the government allow oil and gas. So if the government allow oil and gas, who will protect us as fishers? That is my first question. What I do now in my hometown, because I know it's not the fishers alone who sit with this problem, it's also the people who are sitting in the farms, because they need some ground to do some development in the sea area. So what they do, they are busy to take some farmers' ground to put some sun panels and wind power. So that is a frustration for the fisherman, for the farmer, for the small farmer as well. So at the end of the day, we need each other. But to go forward with this struggle is to bring the youth on board, because the things we are busy today is the life of the youth forward. So they are the ones who must bring the answers and who are taking the decisions. Because what we do now is not for us. Because us here, our time is already finished in walking out. So what we're doing now, we're putting a structure on the table for the youth. So we must encourage them and include them with all the decisions we're making. So number one, I try to mobilize my community in Port Nolet, tell him all the negative impact of all the gas and water and green water stuff they are bringing in our water. So yeah, people are seeing now the danger, what is on the way, and they really don't know what are coming for them. So what I ask from the government is that when they come to the communities, they must be open and transparency, because that's the only manner to go way forward. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Walter. Okay, we have another, do you mind coming forward? Just another input. But yeah, Walter is touching on the need to create space for the youth to come into these struggles. I know a lot of the leaders who've been fighting this fight have been doing so for a very, very long time.
And I think there's definitely an opportunity or a space for the development of the youth to come into with that sort of energy, to take up the struggle and to further protect our right to food. Go ahead.
Ja, ik praat Afrikaans. Ik is Emily Streiswaai.
So for those who are online, we will have English translation.
Ik is Emily Newman van Streiswaai.
I'm Emily Newman from Strasbourg.
Ik heb nog net gehoor hoe praat julle van die olie en van die gas. En dit maak my ook as vissersvrou bekommerd.
Just heard what you were saying about the oil and gas. And as a fisherwoman, it makes me worry.
Ja, wanneer dit by ons kom dat ek al het nou al reeds ook al vergadering gehou waarvan ons manne nie ingelig was nie. En my het dit nou op hout gesit.
So they recently had a meeting about gas and oil in my region, but most of the people weren't informed about it. So they have rescheduled it now.
Ja, so ek as vissersvrou is regtig bekommerd vir my gemeenskap, vissersgemeenskap, want ons is 'n baie klein vissersgemeenskap in Streiswaai by die mees suidelike punt van Afrika. So ons is baie klein en hoe beklei ons teen die government?
So as a fisherwoman of a small fishing village, I am very worried about this new developments. Yeah.
En ja, na wie toe kan ek gaan as dit gebeur?
And who do I approach when this happens?
Ek sal baie waardeer as iemand vir my dit 'n antwoord kan gee.
I would appreciate it highly if someone can give me an answer to my question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You are asking a very important question, and I don't know if I could possibly answer it. But this fear around oil and gas infiltrating your community, I think is a very real one and a very valid one. I think this idea of having collective sort of discussion, these are the platforms in where we try and advise each other and try and create or come up with strategies that could potentially help even the small communities that you think that your community is small and maybe powerless in the face of government. But I think these are the spaces in which we get collective assistance, and you are able to meet up with other communities and where you can draw strength through mobilization and through organizing and ensure that the fight of oil and gas in your community can be won. I don't know if there's any more. Oh, there's one more. Oh, two more, sorry, three more, sorry, four. There are more. But we'll need to just keep them, can we just make sure that we keep it short so that everyone is sort of able to get a bit of an opportunity to speak.
Hi everyone, I'm Carmelita Mostert from Saldanha in the Western Cape. We are also dealing with gas and oil. So I agree 100% with Walter. The government hasn't a clue what the impact of the oil has in our waters. So they didn't know the effects, what oil can do in gas. So we have a logo what said oil and water can't mix. Because firstly, when they come drilling for oil, the fish gonna disappear. So where did the fishermen gonna get work? Where do the fishermen go? Because the law said you can only get work if you're 35, then you are almost now able to get work. But when you are 14 up, There's no work, and all our fishes is still in the age of 40s, 50s, 60s, still 80s, and they are still active to the sea. They are still fishing by themselves. So when gas and oil come, we're gonna find our fishes ourselves in life. So we're not powerless. We can fight the government and say to them, come with us. Come see how get we our fish in our waters to put food on our tables for our families. So we can challenge the government because I didn't know about the sea or the oceans. So I will encourage each and everyone today, stand together and organize marches. Tell the government your experience in what you know about the sea. I thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I do need to stop the Zoom at 5:15. Doesn't mean you cannot stay and continue your conversation. And then you just have to do the translation into the room, okay? Because this is the account for the big room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you just 1 second? See what's in the room. 1 second, show them.
Except we have many cords. Okay.
It's the best we can do about it.
So very full rooms.
Just before we end off the Zoom, I would like to thank our online participants. Your inputs were invaluable, and we thank you so much for taking out the time and sort of speaking to small and speaking to the rest of us. We do apologize about this having to cut the Zoom short, but yeah, that's just one of those things. But thank you so much for being part of this discussion and sharing with us from your perspectives as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a good discussion.